Alright, so I'm back making another video sooner than I even expected. Yeah, so apparently the last video struck a couple of nerves with some people about me putting cheap stuff in the F14. So let me just kind of clarify my thought process on this whole project. So I started this project back in, I believe it was 2008. So we're now talking about 13 years, and it's never flown. An extremely ambitious project for anyone in the hobby. That goes without saying. And there's been a whole lot of challenges involved that most people don't even realize. And a couple of them that I still haven't completely found a solution to. The biggest challenge with any project like this is landing gear. To be honest, like, looking back on it, I would have never begun this project from the beginning had I known then what I know now about sourcing custom machine components. I've talked to places involved in the RC landing gear business for years, and to be blunt about it, not a single one of them will touch this project. Nobody will even discuss doing or even talking about possibly doing a set of landing gear for this airplane. So that alone makes it an extremely difficult project to complete. I mean, the F14 in no form and fashion is a simple project. You have the wing complexity with the swing wing. The landing gear is visibly very simple, but operationally and manufacturing ability is extremely complex and very difficult. So that's really been the biggest headache with the whole project, is just finding someone to machine components. My source that I got a lot of the machine components from, almost 10 years ago now, has completely dried up, so I don't have that ability anymore. He was actually about the only guy that would do things as a business, and with the understanding that eventually it would make out to be a large investment, but initially it was a small one. And luckily he was kind of intrigued by the project and offered to do it for reasonable expectations on pricing, or at least what I thought was reasonable. So that source is gone. I've got a couple of other sources that are friends that have expressed interest in doing it, but as far as the technical ability and the time wise, I mean, it's one of those things where they get to it when they get to it. And 13 years later, we've got an airplane that's almost flying that most people are going to look at as being like, oh, well, you cheaped out on it and you went with cheap stuff. So here's my reasoning on why I have gone cheap at the end. 13 years, and if I had to make a estimated guess, I would say I probably got about $30,000 in this project. Yeah, that's 3 with 4 zeros behind it. No cheap project at all. I mean, looking back on it, I should have just waited a couple of years for Skymaster to release theirs and just bought a Skymaster kit, because I could have had an airplane flying almost 10 years ago by now if I would have just done that. But me being the hard-headed person I am, decided I wanted to do it the hard way. And here we are, 13 years later, with really just a big heavy paperweight to show for it at this point. So why did I go cheap? Started off going extremely expensive on everything by investing in the plugs and the molds and all that. So yeah, I mean, at some point you have to kind of look at the investment of it and go, how much more money do you want to put into something that's unproven? This one has always been just as a prototype. It's extremely heavy. The surface quality of the layup is what I would consider a 0 out of 10 as far as quality goes. I'm not happy with this airplane at all compared to things that I have done in the past 5 or 6 years. I mean, this airplane being the first one that I took out of the mold compared to my Horton 229s, or even the quarter scale TA152s that I've done, or even some of the T38 parts, is night and day difference. This airplane is just crap compared to anything that I've done in the past 5 years. Not only is it quality wise, as far as like the surface finish, but also the weight. The things that I have learned in the past 10 years since I first molded and popped this out of the mold is huge difference in just the knowledge base of it. So I mentioned this airplane right now is about 54 pounds, and that's with the turbine. One turbine, yes, it's just a single turbine. Why do I only go with a single turbine? It comes down to investment and money. Why do I want to put $4,000 worth of turbines in an airplane that may or may not last more than one flight? I'm sure anybody who has any sort of financial responsibility to themselves would not want to take a completely unproven airframe, put $4,000 worth of brand new parts in it, not including probably another $600 or $800 in tailpipes and everything else that's inside this thing, and get the CG off by half an inch, or who knows whatever, or any other myriad of issues, and watch it turn into a smoking hole in the ground. So why did I buy a $400 turbine? Minimal investment, minimal care. Those are really the two big things. Minimal care is the number one thing I have at this point. 13 years of dealing with this thing, I'm ready to see it in the air. If it crashes and turns a smoking hole in the ground, I have really written off this entire airplane at this point. I want to see it fly, and if it lasts more than one flight, I will be the happiest person that you could even imagine, because I'm going to say it again, 13 years, 1-3. That's a long time. I mean, I've had this thing around longer than I've had my kids. So if it flies and it lands and it's all in one piece, or hell, it doesn't turn into a smoking hole in the ground and I still have usable parts from it, awesome. But if it turns into a smoking hole in the ground, I have, outside of the actual airframe, I've got under $200 in the landing gear, the wheels, the brakes. I've got a $400 turbine in it, and I've got about $1,000 worth of radio equipment. So you're talking about a $2,000 investment, not including the airframe. I really don't care if people call me crazy because I went cheap, because you're not paying for it. If you want to sit here and send me $4,000 to put two turbines in it, hey, I will send you my PayPal account right now, and I will take it gladly and say thank you more times than you can count. But as long as I'm paying for it, I will do with it as I please. So here's number two, other than the minimal care. Number two is, it's a prototype. Prototypes are not meant to last forever. So, like I said, this one, surface quality is horrible. And what I mean by horrible, nobody has seen this stuff up close other than myself. There are air bubbles everywhere. There is a seam where the litho plate was attached. And this is just because there was a little bubble between the first layer of glass and the primer. So when you pull it out, you get all these little issues with the layup. I mean, it's just, the airplane's just covered with them. You see body filler where I started filling stuff in. You can see here, it was like where it's just a gap where the corner was. I mean, the whole airplane's covered in that stuff. About the only stuff that's not covered in it is the wings and the tail. And that's because the wings and the vertical staffs are some of the last things I actually molded. These horizontal stabilizers, these things are literally almost as big as the T-38 wing panels. And these things are 1.5 pounds each. 1.5 pounds. A wing panel for my T-38 with all the structure for landing gear and everything is going to be 1/3 of that weight. Granted, it's got way more carbon, but 1/3 of the weight, and it's practically the same size. I mean, I could go on and on about reasons why I went cheap in people's opinions, but hey, you know what? In the end of the day, y'all want to see an airplane fly, or you want to wait another 13 years to see it finished with 2 turbines? I mean, I'm sure anybody who is in my shoes, who has just been sinking money into a project time and time again, eventually you're going to get to the point to where you're just ready to see it done. And again, for the 3rd time, 4th time, I don't know. Anyways, it's a prototype. It's going to serve one purpose. It's to fly. It's to prove the airframe. It's to prove the structure. And it's to be eliminated. It will be disposed of when everything is done. No, I won't give it away. No, I'm not going to give it to some airport to hang in. It will get chopped up and it will get trashed just like the plugs did. The airplane's not going to be around after it has served its 3 purposes. Fly, prove the airframe, prove the structure. And the structure in the airplane right now is, I have no doubts that the structure will last. It is heavy. Like I said, it's 54 pounds. To take into consideration, a Skymaster is, they're basically the exact same size airplane. Skymaster with 2 turbines, functional wing sweep, a full cockpit, fully retractable landing gear, wheel brakes, speed brakes, spoilers, slats, gear doors, everything weighs about 65 pounds with no fuel on board. So this airplane is only 10 pounds lighter, and it's got 1 less turbine, 1 less tailpipe, no retractable landing gear, no gear doors, no speed brakes. This is like the Pinto of F14's at this point. It's got literally the bare minimum to get it off the ground. And it's only 10 pounds lighter. A turbine and a tailpipe assembly is about 3.5 pounds. So you put that on, now I'm knocking on 60 pounds worth of weight. I'm only 5 pounds lighter, and I still got landing gear and all that crap in the cockpit to put in it. It makes no sense to put a ton of money into an unproven airframe that, for all you know, hey, the thing could break. Now the carry-through bar, that's carbon fiber and aluminum. I've got no worries that that's going to fail. I got no worries that the layups are going to fail because it's way overbuilt. I mean, there's 12 ounces, I'm sorry, there's 9 ounces of glass per layer, plus the Air-X that's in there. I mean, this thing is like a tank. You could literally, actually, I've had my son stand on top of it where there was no bulkheads and it didn't even flex hardly. He weighs 60 pounds practically. How I've had over 200 pounds of water on the wing panel, only supported by the pivot bolt, and it didn't even flex. Matter of fact, it broke the C-clamp that was holding it on. And that was attached to a 10,000 pound forklift. Structure-wise, the airplane's fine, but it's extremely heavy. The next one, I bet you I could save 10 pounds just off the fuselage. The fuselage is almost 25 pounds empty, just between the fuselage and internal structure than that carbon fiber wing box. That carbon fiber wing box is almost 3 pounds with aluminum brackets, and the aluminum brackets are only half a pound. So, lots of stuff going on with a 13-year-old project. I'm tired of working on it. I'm tired of looking at this thing because it is ugly. I mean, you can see all the brown crap that's stuck to it. And I want to see it fly. This year, at this point, it will fly. It will prove itself. And if it flies really nice, I've got the molds. I will make me another one that is lighter, stronger, if it needs it, which I don't really think, and looks better. And once I get another one done, then I will invest the money, because at that point, it'll get retracts if I can find somebody. Well, let me rephrase that. When I find someone to machine them, if I don't make them out of carbon fiber parts myself, that's a whole nother story I'll get into later that I've thought about doing. So if it proves itself to be worthy and I can get landing gear for it, then I will make me another one. But at this point, I am just worried about getting it done, getting it flying, proving the airframe, proving the structure, and getting rid of the thing. I've got plenty of other projects where this one needs to get done instead of putting something else in front of it and something else in front of it and something else in front of it. I'm tired of working at it. 13 years, let's get it done. Let's get it up there in the sky. And let's get some resolution to something that people have been bugging me for 13 years to hurry up and finish. So, yes, I went cheap because I wanted to. That's all it comes down to it. Nobody's paying for this stuff except for me. I don't have investors. I don't have anybody putting money in my pocket without some sort of give back to them, as in my job. So if you guys want to help fund it, let me know. I'll send you my PayPal. You can just infuse money to the PayPal when you want to, because the project could use it. Otherwise, I would have 2 turbines in it and landing gear already. But hey, you know what? When one company quotes me $17,000 for one set of landing gear, there's a reason why it doesn't have retracts on it right now. And it's not because I went cheap, it's because I wasn't paying that kind of money for it. So I have many options at the back of my head. It's not like this is going to be cheap and it's going to stay this way. It's just for one purpose: get the prototype flying and prove the airframe. Once all that's done, then we'll figure out what to do with number 2, because number 2 will be way better in many, many ways. So, yes, it sounds crazy, but I have my reasons. 13 years later, we're gonna get it flying this year. That is the plan. So if you don't like it, oh well. Shut up and watch the videos. I'm just kidding. Don't shut up. I like getting comments from you guys. So, anyways, y'all have a good one. If you got more questions, let me know. I might sound crazy, but hey, we're all a little crazy. So, y'all have a good afternoon. We'll see you next time.